Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Clown World Network. I'm Brian Morris, your host, here with the tent flaps up and all the clowns running around. I don't know, we got to work on our entry. But hey, it's a great day. We actually are listening to all your criticism about our audio, and with yesterday's audio meltdown, we made some changes. So we're going to work on some audio. We appreciate if you continue to give us feedback, because we are listening, and of course, because I'm a very prideful person, I take all the constructive criticism to heart. Today's going to be a great show. We have just a good lineup today. It's actually a historic day. But before we get into the show, I have to remind you to like, share, follow, and subscribe. And as long as you're keeping your comments coming, that helps with the algorithms. I'm going to continue to educate you on how to boost a YouTube show, as ours is still in its infancy. As I was saying, today is a historic day, actually one that few even understand, since our public schools and our schools are not really teaching history anymore. But on this day, 76 years ago, American soldiers in Iwo Jima, Japan were caught on video, or film, wasn't a video back then, but they were caught on film raising the flag on Mount Suribachi. Bill Gnost, the American soldier who actually captured the moment, and this is a moment you'll all recognize and a moment that has lived on long beyond this time, but the guy who actually captured it on video, Bill, was actually killed 9 days later, and his remains still have not yet been recovered. So he was lost as a KIA, and his remains have never been covered. It's important that we recognize history so we don't repeat it. It's important we recognize history so we can respect the past. And it's important that we recognize history so we can enjoy the present. Too many things in the last several years have all been about canceling the history of America, and we can't do that. So while we're recognizing history, let's pay our respects in a moment of silence. There's just so much pride when you watch that video, because we've all seen the statues and the monuments and the dedications and the references in movies for many, many years. But few people even know where that event took place or when. So it was 76 years ago on February 23rd, 1945, and it happened in Iwo Jima, Japan at Mount Suribachi. So that's just something you could have for a tidbit of knowledge. It's an important day. I hope we always recognize the sacrifices that our soldiers make, and we always remember that we owe them our thanks. It is, yes, some people have been drafted back in the day, but the people that are serving in our country now do so on their own accord. They sign up for it, and they go out and they put themselves at risk for little respect and little reward. It's important that we always give thanks to the men and women in our law enforcement, in our armed forces. So thank you to everyone who served or will serve. You know, kind of one of the most patriotic states in the Union is Texas, which Joe Biden, Texas is the Lone Star state. But in 2020, Joe Biden made it the left the Lone Star state. In fact, he never once went there to campaign, and is traveling to Texas for his first time since becoming the selected president of the United States. Let all Texans give Joe a fine howdy-do as he arrives in Houston to meet with local leaders and discuss ongoing recovery from last week's winter storms. If you didn't watch the show last week, you wouldn't know, right, that Texas got frozen. So maybe, yeah. I'm sure Joe's presence in Texas is just what the people of Texas wanted, right? That's all, to make everything better, you know, to have him on the ground there and fumble through a few speeches. But that's why going to Houston is probably a good thing, because as any real Texan will tell you, Houston, it's not Texas. Speaking about Joe Biden, his Attorney General-elect, during a Senate Judiciary hearing on Monday, Senator Josh Hawley asked Garland whether unlawful boarding crossings in the United States should remain a crime. Garland replied by saying he had not given it much thought. He said that's not aware of any proposal to decriminalize but still make it unlawful to enter. I just don't know the answer to that question. I haven't thought about it. How do you decriminalize something and still make it illegal? I mean, I'm confused. If you're not going to prosecute, then regardless of what the law says, if you're not going to do anything about it, why would anybody honor it? Let's use California's shoplifting law as an example. So in California, they made it illegal to shoplift, but if you get caught shoplifting under $1,000, then you just get a ticket. So what it did is it led rise to shoplifting, and it made criminals more aware of what they were stealing, to the point where they were getting calculators and actually calculating what they were stealing to make sure they were under the $1,000 threshold. But Garland isn't sure really where he wants to go with that. Now, as we learned over a week ago, Garland has a very aggressive approach to the Second Amendment. In fact, he pretty much outlines the fact that he hates it. He hates the fact that Americans can own guns. But yet, he's put more thought into disarming lawful American citizens than he has into the criminalization of illegal border crossing, like the emphasis on illegal. And as the Biden administration continues rollback on all of Donald Trump's efforts to secure our borders, this is going to be an ongoing issue. It's a little disturbing and a lot unclear about the direction that Garland's going. And for that, I really have to welcome Mr. Garland back as our second time Clown of the Day. And just so you all know, Lauren's back in the office today. He's not feeling 100%, but he wanted to make sure that I followed the cues. So he printed out the notes on these big pieces of paper. Lauren, I'd like to thank you because I'm not missing anything, okay? Lauren has a habit of making sure his show to be perfect, and I have a tendency to freestyle. So he wanted to make sure that I saw his cues. So he printed it out on 11 by 17. I'm laughing as I'm looking at this paper. I mean, look at this thing. It's huge, right? I had to bring attention to it. But speaking of Merrick Garland's approach to illegal border crossing, the Biden administration is altering the citizenship questions. So right now, it's 20 questions. You have to have 60% right. The U.S. Citizen and Immigration Service Agency said it will now only ask 10 questions of applicants rather than 20 under the policy enacted in December by President Trump. The hopeful citizen must only answer 60% correctly. So you can make 6 out of 10 questions and become a citizen. One of the discarded questions was the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are in what founding document? Now I can hear the light bulbs going off, and I can hear the kind of thinking going on. For those of you who may not know, shame on you. That's one of the most important things, the documents that we have. It's known as the Bill of Rights. But what do we care, right? We're going to open borders, make it legal to cross, make the citizenship test easier, take out history. I mean, we've continued to make it just a unusual time for us in this country. And we've also come into the fact that our political candidates are being, how do I say this, courted, for lack of a better word, by big tech. Employees at Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook, Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, donated at least $15.1 million to President Joe Biden's presidential campaign. According to Open Secrets, Wall Street employees also donated to Biden's presidential campaign, with Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and JP Morgan giving over a collective 3.7 million. But Alphabet Google employees donated over 5.2 million on their own. That's almost half of what big tech gave. And Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook employees gave 3.2, 2.8, and 1.9 million collectively. Now, I want you to also understand that this doesn't include the big donations, the donations that came from the CEOs themselves. The big CEOs donated sometimes in excess of 300 million, right? We know that Facebook, we know that Google, and we know that Apple all donated almost 800 million combined just from their CEOs. So while campaign finance law prohibits corporations from donating directly to political campaigns, personally, people can donate, but Facebook as a company can't. When you're the richest, one of the richest people in the world, and you donate to a political candidate, or you put money into a PAC for a political candidate, aren't you essentially donating on behalf of the corporation? We have some really big loopholes in our campaign finance laws, and big tech has exploited every one of them. But lawmakers from both parties on this regard actually have come together and argued that tech companies, especially Facebook, Google, and Amazon, are way too big. They have way too much political influence. You're talking about tech companies having political influence. They've been on the Hill, they've been questioned, and there's talk that they need to be broken up. And I, for one, agree. Back in the day when Ma Bell was the biggest telephone company in the United States, they broke them up into all these little smaller entities to make it more competitive and to allow for other emerging markets to happen. If we continue on the path that we're going, Amazon's going to eat up and put out of business, I don't know how many thousands of small businesses, even big businesses. Apple is going to continue to just dominate in its part of the market share. And Google, which has zero competition. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Google doesn't have any real competition, and neither does Facebook. Even with everything Facebook has done, they don't have any real competition. So we hope for a little oversight on that. The last part of our stories today will be the Second Amendment rally. For a couple weeks, we talked about the rally occurring on Saturday. It was the 20th. It was one of the biggest events that's happened in Arizona since last year's Second Amendment rally. It was held at the Arizona State Capitol. It was called an open carry event. And for those of you who don't know what open carry means, it means that thousands of armed American citizens, thousands, not one or two, but nearly everybody there over the age of 18 had a gun. Guns like, AR-15s, 50 cals, handguns, everything ranging from pocket pistols all the way up to, Desert Eagles. There was an awesome display of armament in the hands of American citizens walking around, and guess what? Not a single incident occurred, not one. Can you imagine all those really bad guns in one place? The ones they talk about being so deadly and having a mind of their own and just being able to do and commit crimes, and not one of them was discharged, committing a crime, injuring, or killing someone. How is that even possible? How can there be an event where it is open carry, police presence wasn't heightened, they just walked around and mixed with the crowd? Because firearms in the hands of responsible gun owners are not a problem. However, politicians and political offices in the hands of bad people are a problem. Do you see the difference? Guns are supposed to be bad, but in the hands of good citizens are okay. But political offices are supposed to be good, but in the hands of bad people are not okay. So let's start voting for good people and put them in political offices to make good decisions so that law-abiding Americans can honor the Second Amendment and carry guns freely without fear of their government trying to stifle their rights. The day was filled with complete education, great speakers, lots of vendors, tons of education for the entire family, from young kids all the way up to, the oldest adults. They talked about laws coming in, what we can do to stay active, what we can do to stay involved. And if you care about your Second Amendment right, you need to get off your ass and you need to get involved at any level. We even had a family fun park sponsored by the Great State Alliance. Yep, a family fun park at a massive gun rally with thousands of American citizens carrying guns. Have I emphasized it enough? Thousands. Young kids, old people, all walks of life, backgrounds, races, etc. in one place, and not a single incident, not an arrest, not an altercation with a police officer, nothing. I am very pro Second Amendment and will never, ever keep my voice quiet about it. We need to be responsible as gun owners in handling and educating. We need to teach respect for our firearms. We need to teach our children respect for firearms and hope that we can continue to have the right to bear arms. Let's see a little bit from the 2A rally.
The old saying, an armed society is a polite society, is absolutely true. As long as we have the potential to be armed, we can rationally discuss and debate our differences and our philosophies.
And I actually believe even though the Second Amendment is number 2, we actually should treat it like it's number 1. And here's why. Because it protects all other 26 amendments.
And as you can see behind me here, we got a lot of things going on. Great State Alliance sponsored the Family Fun Park because we wanted to make this event about kids and families. So we're just blessed to be partnering with Riders USA today and all these other amazing organizations that are out here.
Hey folks, Mark Lamb. I'm the Sheriff of Pinal County, Arizona. I'm out here today supporting the Second Amendment rally because I understand the oath that I took. I support the Constitution, and of course, that includes the Second Amendment. We need Americans to stand up today and start to protect our Constitution and the American way of life and freedom. God bless you all. Let's support our sheriff, let's support the Second Amendment, and let's support the Constitution of the United States.
My name's Tracy. I'm actually an Australian that lives here in Arizona, and I'm down here today at our Second Amendment rally because the Second Amendment is extremely important to all of us. It does also protect our First Amendment rights. And as you can see, we're having a fantastic turnout here today. We've got people from all groups, all age groups, all political sides, and it is a fantastic event. I recommend it next year around, and I certainly recommend any rallies that are coming up that you'll come and attend, because without attending the rallies, the politicians aren't hearing our voices.
Thank you for the greatest gift any of us will have ever received, being born free in the United States of America.
I don't know about you, but I didn't see anybody there that looked intimidated, scared, or scary. And it looked like a good family fun day. I mean, it was a great event. And we thank all those vendors that came together, because it takes a lot of people to put an event on like that, when you're basically putting out an event just to garner information, to put out good information, and to educate the public. I have to point out Sheriff Lamb, though. Every time Sheriff Lamb shows up at an event, he is so awesome, but the women just are like, oh, Mr. Lamb, you know, it's the craziest thing. This guy has this whole, like, following of women that just fawn over him at any event, doesn't matter what it is. We've seen him at like 16 or 17 events this year. He is one of the greatest supporters of everything that we do here, not just at Clown World Network, but in Arizona, where we go to the rallies for child trafficking. We go to the rallies for elections, for keeping the state safe, to dealing with illegals, and then, of course, the Second Amendment. And he is a very pro 2A sheriff that I don't believe if federal law was to come in and try to mandate him to come take our guns, that he would enforce his deputies or ask them to even think about doing that. I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. Please make sure to comment. Let us know how the sound was, because that's going to help us continue to adjust. We've made a lot of changes here in the last week, and we appreciate your viewership. We appreciate you. Be good to each other. Know that I love you, and we will talk to you again real soon. I hope you all have a good night.